The wind screamed across the plains. Snow cut like glass against the hides. The teepee swayed thin as breath fragile as skin. No walls, no roof of stone, just canvas and firelight. Yet inside warmth lived. A family laughed softly as the storm raged. The teepee didn't fight the wind, it moved with it. Poles leaned, hides flexed, smoke breathed upward through the cone. Each gust became rhythm, not chaos. Each sound a conversation between storm and shelter. They survived not by strength, but by harmony. Fire, breath, silence. When the fire fades, you don't chase it, you become it. To the people of the Great Plains, the Lakota, the Blackfeet, the Cheyenne winter was never an enemy. It was a teacher. Every storm carried a lesson, patience, rhythm, respect. Their homes, the Tipis, were not prisons against the cold. They were companions that breathed. When the wind howled, the teepee answered softly. When snow fell heavy, its cone shed the weight like a prayer released to the sky. It was built with the logic of engineers and the soul of faith. Each pole, each hide was part of a circle, a reminder that what protects also listens. They believed warmth was not something you owned. It was something you earned through stillness, through understanding. The storm came to test, not to destroy. And in listening, they found harmony, fire, breath, silence. Beneath every teepee lay wisdom. The ground was never bare. Before the cold arrived, the people prepared the earth itself to be their ally. They wove mats of willow, spread thick layers of dry grass, and laid down hides heavy with memory. Each layer held air in visible pockets of life nature's quiet insulation. It wasn't just bedding, it was balance. They didn't fight the frozen ground, they built warmth upon it. The frozen plains could steal heat faster than any wind. Lie down without protection, and the cold would climb into your bones like a thief in the dark. But with each layer, they slowed the thief's breath. The willow mats lifted the sleepers from the frost. Dry grass trapped air, keeping warmth from escaping. Buffalo hides sealed it all soft above strong below. Even the snow itself became a friend, packed tight around the tepee's base to block the crawling wind. To the Lakota and the Blackfeet, the floor of the teepee was more than ground. It was a living memory of summer, the scent of grass, the feel of warmth remembered, a promise whispered from the earth, I will hold your sleep. At night, when the fire dimmed, that warmth rose gently through the layers. It didn't rush, it waited, slow, patient kind, like the rhythm of breath. Even in blizzards that howled for days, families woke to find the floor still warm beneath them. No smoke, no sparks, just the earth keeping its word. They called it the still warmth, a gift of patience, because survival was never about heat alone. It was about understanding where warmth begins from below, from within, from the earth that remembers. Fire, breath, silence. The earth held their sleep like a promise. In the center of every teepee, the fire burned, never large, always alive. It was not a roaring blaze. It was a pulse, a heartbeat that rose and fell with the breath of the wind. Its smoke climbed upward through flaps that opened and closed like lungs. The teepee breathed with the weather. When the wind shifted, so did the flaps, guiding the smoke away, drawing clean air in. Too much flame brought suffocation. Too little, the cold crept in like a silent thief. So they learned to feed the fire with rhythm, steady, patient, alive. The fire pit was shallow, no deeper than 6 inches. It was carved into the earth to keep heat low and centered, spreading warmth evenly. Rocks around the pit stored that heat, glowing long after the flames dimmed. Even in blizzards, the teepee's heart stayed warm, its breath steady. Children slept closest to the glow, their faces soft with amber light. Elders watched the embers, reading their language, knowing when to add wood, when to let it rest. They didn't burn for brightness. They burned for balance. Fire, breath, silence. The air inside shimmered with life, warm, moving, never still. It carried the scent of earth and smoke of patience itself. No one shouted over the fire. It demanded quiet, respect, attention, because the smallest flame could mean the difference between life and loss. It was never decoration. It was discipline. To them, warmth wasn't made by fire, but by rhythm. The tepee didn't trap heat. It conducted it a perfect harmony of air, flame, and will. The fire wasn't a thing. It was a teacher. It taught restraint, timing, awareness. And in that awareness, they found life. Fire, breath, silence. Warmth wasn't made by fire, but by rhythm. Around them, buffalo hides hung in 2 layers, one tight, one loose. Between them, silence. And in that silence, warmth lived. The outer hide faced the storm, thick, weathered, defiant. It carried the snow's weight, let the wind slide across its back. The inner layer, soft and supple, held the heat inside. Between them was air, still, invisible, sacred. That stillness trapped warmth better than any wall of stone. The tepee wasn't built to block the world. It was built to breathe with it. When the wind pressed hard, the hides moved together, not breaking, but flexing. They whispered in rhythm like 2 hearts beating in harmony. The wind touched, but never entered. The snow slid down like rain on polished bone. Outside chaos, inside calm. To the Lakota and the Blackfeet, this was more than design. It was understanding. They saw that still air, the space between, was life itself. Every creature on the plains knew it: the fox under snow, the bird under feathers, the bison beneath its winter coat. Nature had already written the lesson. They simply followed it. The base of the tepee was sealed with packed snow, a white ring that hugged the earth, stopping the wind from crawling in. It looked simple, almost fragile, but it was centuries ahead of its time, a natural system of airflow and insulation that modern engineers would one day rediscover. Inside, the temperature could hold steady even when blizzards howled for days. Not hot, not cold, balanced. The kind of warmth that asks for nothing but patience. Still air was the secret warmth of winter, not the fire, not the hides. The silence between them. Fire, breath, silence. The tepee didn't fight the storm, it listened. Inside, families slept close heads near the heart of the fire, feet wrapped in thick furs. The storm could scream outside all it wanted, but within warmth had its own rhythm. Their breath fogged the air, slow, soft, steady. That fog carried life. Each exhale fed the tepee, adding moisture that held the heat. The hides, warm to the touch, absorbed it and breathed it back through the night. The air was never still. It pulsed like lungs at rest. The tepee became a living body, alive with warmth, breath, and patience. Body heat joined the fire's glow. The moisture in the air turned cold air, gentle, raising the inside temperature by 5, sometimes 8 degrees. Not enough to sweat, just enough to live. Even when frost crept along the outer walls, the air inside stayed soft, almost tender. It was warmth you could feel, not in flames, but in closeness. Not in walls, but in breath. Children slept between hides and fur blankets, faces turned toward the faint red light. Mothers listened to the crackle of embers, fathers to the wind beyond the hide walls. There were no words, only breathing, many hearts, one rhythm. In that silence, they remembered what it meant to endure together. When morning came, the walls glistened with frost, shining like stars caught in hide. The breath of the night still lingered, clinging to the air like memory. They rose slowly, unhurried, letting the cold touch them but never claim them, because warmth wasn't only fire. It was the sum of everything alive within that space flame: body, breath, patience. They survived not through walls, but through breath, fire, breath, silence. Before the cold came, they prepared woodstone, silence. The people of the plains knew that fire was not just light or heat. It was time itself, a rhythm to live by. Fires burned only when needed, never too early, never too long. Each flame was a choice, not a reaction. When the night deepened, they banked the embers, covering them with ash, a blanket of patience. Beneath that pale gray layer, heat slept quietly, breathing beneath the surface. By morning, it still lived, waiting to rise again. They didn't chase heat. They learned its rhythm. They knew that too much fire wasted life, too little, and life would fade. So they balanced not by strength, but by attention, fire, breath, silence. Across the tipi stones circled the pit, each one warmed by the night's flame. Even when the fire's voice went silent, those stones whispered warmth back into the air. It wasn't magic, it was understanding. They used ash as insulation, turning what remained of flame into a shield against the cold. Discipline kept them alive, not flame, not luck. In the modern world, we forget that warmth has a rhythm. We fill the dark with noise, chase comfort without pause. But to the Lakota and the Pawnee, warmth was ceremony, a partnership between time, patience, and breath. They didn't fight the night, they waited with it. And the earth rewarded them a quiet glow that endured till dawn. Even now, their lesson lingers in the ashes. That true warmth isn't measured in degrees, but in restraint, because patience burns longer than flame. To the native peoples, survival was never resistance. It was listening. They did not fight the winter, they moved with it. The teepee didn't conquer the storm. It danced with it. Each pole, each hide, each ember part of a quiet conversation between man and wind. They had no walls to hide behind, no roofs of iron to defy the snow. Instead, they had rhythm, the ancient agreement between warmth and cold life and stillness. The fire burned not to dominate the dark, but to speak softly within it. Its smoke spiraled upward, not escaping, but returning a message written in breath, rising into the night sky. Even the snow listened. It fell gently, sealing the ground, protecting what lived within. To them, survival was harmony, not battle. Every act of living was an act of balance. Too much fire meant smoke. Too little, the frost would creep back in. They learned to walk the middle path, the sacred distance between need and greed. The teepee itself became a mirror of the world, strong in structure, soft in motion. It breathed it, flexed it, waited. Its silence was not emptiness, it was understanding. Because in silence, the world revealed its rhythm, wind, flame, breath, heart. When the storm passed, they did not celebrate victory. They simply gave thanks for the wind that taught endurance, for the snow that wrapped the land in rest, for the fire that whispered life into the cold. They believed warmth was not taken. It was shared between earth and breath, between silence and flame. In that balance, they found peace. In that peace, they found survival, fire, breath, silence. The teepee didn't fight the winter. It listened. The storm passed. The plains exhaled under the quiet moon. The teepee stood still, its smoke fading into the silver sky. The fire dimmed, but its lesson stayed, because warmth was never made by flame. It was carried in silence, in patience, in breath. Outside, the snow glimmered like old light. Inside, ashes rested gray, calm, alive. The people didn't see ashes as endings. They saw them as memory proof that heat had lived here once and might rise again. They gathered the last embers not to burn but to remember, each spark a story, each wisp of smoke a prayer. In that stillness, they understood survival was never about conquering the cold, but about learning its rhythm. When the fire fades, you don't chase it, you become it, because warmth, the true kind, doesn't come from the wood, but from the will, from the quiet places inside us that still glow even when the world turns white. Fire, breath, silence, stay by the fire.